I mean, I don't know. I don't think death is a bad thing. It's part of life. So to like say whether something's right or say whether something's wrong, sure, it might be right now, but in the future it could be completely different. So it's hard to say. When somebody dies, I don't know where they go.
Aiden, how do you think we got here? How do you think the world came into existence?
Well, I don't really have any religious beliefs, so I'm more of the science-based theory. But for me personally, I don't know. It's like a lot to just like. It's just my opinion, and it won't really go anywhere. So I would say the Big Bang Theory.
Okay.
And just like maybe like some little amoeba or I don't know. There's a lot of theories that go along with it, but
right on.
I don't know. Just Big Bang Theory, I guess.
Gotcha.
Maybe.
Okay. Yeah. Right on. And so, Big Bang Theory.
Yeah.
What do you think? In light of that, what do you think the meaning of life is?
In light of that,
yeah.
The meaning of life. I think it really depends on what like person, like on the person.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to say because like in retrospect, we're all super small.
Yeah.
And like what we do I think it's just like for society, it's always been since we started as, I guess, cavemen or primals or whatever you want to call it. It's been to move our society forward as a unit, just like any other kind of species does.
Okay.
Like you evolve, and I think our future should be to take care of our Earth and preserve nature. But that's mine at least to try and save the world.
Right on. I think I know where the answer to question 3 is going then.
Well, Go Teams Media anchor Luke is enjoying a very respectful conversation with his new friend, Aiden. And in response to big question 1, where do we come from? Or as Luke asked it, how do you think the world came into existence? Aiden professes belief in the Big Bang Theory. And if you don't know what that is, I encourage you to bookmark in your browser answersingenesis.org, our go-to source for answering all questions about the Bible and science, including this one. And here's a helpful quote from Answers in Genesis. The Big Bang is a naturalistic story, for example, cosmology, beginning with a singularity, when all mass, energy, and space was contained in a much smaller volume than the universe today. It is riddled with problems, supported by numerous unobserved assumptions, and most importantly, contradicts the biblical teaching of creation. All true. But thinking a bit beyond the theory also begs the question, where did the original mass, energy, and space that was in existence before the Big Bang come from? Because we know those elements do actually exist. Well, the Bible has the answer in the very first verse. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Of this verse, Dr. Henry M. Morris says, Genesis 1:1 can legitimately and incisively be paraphrased as follows. The transcendent, omnipotent Godhead called into existence the space, mass, time, universe. Now again, while we as Christians don't believe the Big Bang because it's diametrically opposed to the supernatural creation account in the Bible, God gives us the answer of where those original elements came from. Him. Now, Luke is a very consistent and well-informed Christian, so he likely knows this stuff and maybe even shared some of it with Aiden off camera. But on camera, Luke asks a great question to transition the conversation to big question 2, while also exposing the inconsistencies of Aiden's worldview. In light of the Big Bang Theory, what do you think the meaning of life is? Like, as much as I love you, Aiden, and I promise Luke does, how can a purely material and naturalistic story about the explosion of mass energy in space account for an immaterial and supernaturalistic idea like the meaning of life? it can't. So now let's hear how Aiden answers big question 3, the scariest and most spiritual question of all.
So what do you think actually happens then when we die? So I
Yeah.
have a feeling I know what you're going to say, but go.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think death is a bad thing. I mean, it's part of life. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's natural. And when somebody dies, I don't know where they go. What happened before we were born? What happened? Like there was nothing when you don't remember it when you were a baby or when before that. So maybe it could just be black. Could be I don't know, spirit realm or something. I don't know.
So do you feel like you hope for a spirit realm, even though you kind of talked about non-naturalism from the first question? Non-naturalism would be like intelligent design. Naturalism would be what you said, like you mentioned, like the Big Bang and stuff. Do you kind of hope when it comes to like question 3 that like you do get to live on forever? Like, do you hope for that or?
Yeah, I would hope for that at least in the in the afterlife, not here probably because.
We're done.
Yeah, that's
cool. Do you have time for a couple more questions?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So, what do you believe in terms of like morals and ethics, then, Aiden? Like, do you think that there is an objective standard of right and wrong? That's kind of like question 4, really, when it comes to these big 3. Do you think that there's a right and a wrong? And if so, like, what do you think kind of makes something right or wrong? Hard question.
Yeah. I mean, as of right now, like our society, it does have rights and wrongs. Like there's laws for that. But when you compare them to, I don't know, 60 years ago, they're completely different. So to say whether something's right or say whether something's wrong, sure, it might be right now, but in the future, it could be completely different. So it's hard to say. Like, yeah.
I just have a question. So like this is just one example, but like, we would probably both agree that like murder's wrong.
Yes.
Murder would probably always be wrong, correct?
Yeah. Yes. Absolutely.
How about?
But
Yeah.
in retrospect, when you look at it,
Okay,
if it's a horrible person,
okay,
and they did something along the lines of like murder or something like that, where I don't know, it should be just justice, I guess.
okay, that's a very interesting thing that you say too, because like when you think of things even like from a Christian perspective too, a lot of times people look at the Old Testament and they say, well, God wiped out different people at different times, right? But there was also a difference between judgment, which brings justice, and murder, which would be with an evil heart, right? There's also a difference too, if you don't mind me just going on a little tangent here. There's a difference between killing and murder, right? So like I have a family, right? Four kids at home actually. And say there was somebody trying to get into my home, okay? And they actually said, I'm gonna murder your family. Would it be my responsibility to justly, there's a difference between killing and murder, if I had to prevent 5 murders from happening, my wife and my 4 kids, and I killed somebody to prevent 5 murders, would that be a good thing?
I think it would be just in that situation. Right. It would be.
Right.
Because it's preventing like pure evil with using like logic and reason and like it is like, you're preventing things.
Because I was going to say, because like one person's heart in that would be to protect and defend. The other person's heart would be to maliciously murder. Right? So
yes,
the heart,
exactly.
There's a difference in heart intent with that one, right? So that's super cool. Question, this will be my last question. And then if you're okay with me sharing a little bit, I will. A couple of my answers to the big 3 too. But in terms of, you talked about like science versus intelligent design, right? And you talked about how like you're more science-based, you believe in the Big Bang. Do you feel, or do you believe that they don't have to be mutually exclusive? Like, do you think that there are smart Christian or scientists, or do you think, you know what I mean? What do you think about that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, do you mean like, sorry, if you could,
I'll give you an example actually too. So, for instance, like a lot of people say there's a difference between, common creator versus common ancestor. Like based on what you said, we would We yeah, exactly. Your side would be the common ancestor. My side would be the common creator, right?
Yeah.
So there'd be Adam's orchard, where it says in like the book of Genesis in the Bible that God created the plants, the animals, he created people, but it was all an orchard, right? So there'd be a bunch of different kinds. So you see the succession in Genesis where it says he created things, quote, according to their kind, to their kind, right? So from a Christian perspective, even though there's new like species, for instance, being created every day, we only see replication up to the familial level according to its kind, right? So Adam had this orchard, whereas Darwin sort of has this like tree of life where everything comes out of the tree, right? So we would say that, like for instance, like a cat, there's no such, like we haven't seen a cat dog, but we see different design features amongst the different, because like we all have two eyes, two ears, different things. So we would interpret all that evidence as Christians and go, wow, you see how we have a common creator. Whereas your camp would say, you see, we have a common ancestor type of thing, right? And then from our perspective, we would say, well, you see how everything is like perfectly ordered, and you see how your body has this intelligent design. We would humbly say it takes more faith in a way to be on the natural side than the non-naturalistic side, right? I was just going to say, so in terms of morals and ethics, super quick, because the reason I've actually brought you here is because I actually want to share the hope that we actually have for eternity. I asked you about hope there before too, right? So we talked about morals and ethics. One in the Bible, it talks about the 10 Commandments. You've probably heard of those 10 Commandments before.
I can't remember them, but
No? Do you want to go through a couple?
Sure.
Through a couple? So one of them is thou shalt not blaspheme. Like thou shalt not like use the name of God in vain. So like if we've ever said OMG, JC, stuff like that. Have you ever done that before?
I have, yes.
So have I. Another one is thou shalt not lie, right?
You've
done that before?
I think everybody is lying.
Yeah, for sure, right? And then
like morals. Like in that sense, like if you're lying for the betterment of something, then is it as bad or is it the same? You know? But
I hear what you're saying too, right? But at some point too, like everybody's probably like told this white lie or this like, whether it's a big bold-faced one. So essentially, everybody's a liar, right? Everyone's been a liar, right? There's also thou shalt not steal, whether it's time from your employer, like music you've downloaded off the internet, different things like that. Everybody's probably stolen before, right? Yeah. So here, I'll go through one more for fun too. So the 10 Commandments said you shall not commit adultery, but Jesus came and he says, I say to you, if anybody's ever looked upon a woman with lust in their heart, they've committed adultery within their heart, right? Would you say that you've done that? Everybody's done that?
I think everybody's done that.
Everybody's done that, right? So it's funny. So from according to the Christian perspective, when we look at this objective standard, it's kind of like we look into this mirror of morals and ethics. We look into it and we see our fault. We see how good God is and we see how not good we are. Because as we've just said, everybody, if God judges everybody by these 10 commandments, judges, not murders, right? But if he judges everybody by these 10 commandments, everyone's guilty, right? And he's given us, like from the Christian perspective, as far as question 1 goes, he's given us everything. He's given us our breath, our life, right? And so since we've sinned against his law, we deserve justice from the Christian standpoint. But do you know what the good news of the gospel is? How God made a way for sinners like Aiden and like Luke to actually live with him forever in eternity. Do you know what he did?
I don't know.
No. So he sent his son Jesus, right? Okay. So if God, so if God can create this world, he can immaculately bring this perfect man into existence who essentially took the wrath, the spanking for everybody when he died on the cross, right? He took all of that punishment for Aiden's sins, for Luke's sins, for everybody. And now he says, hey, if you actually put your faith in me, now I can grant you forgiveness. And when God looks down, he doesn't see Luke and Aiden, the blaspheming, adulterous, liars, and thieves. He sees the perfection of Jesus because I've now put my faith in him. And then I get to live forever, right? So that's the hope that we'd have as Christians, right? Do you have any questions about that? Has anybody ever explained that fully to you before? That we look into that law, we're all guilty.
Yes.
Jesus comes, and then
My Nana works at a church, so
Oh, okay.
I've heard a lot of it. Yeah,
Oh, cool.
I've heard a lot of it.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, but it's been a pleasure talking.
no, it's been a pleasure talking.
Yeah,
to you.
here, let's do a righty shake. Let me give you the souvenir because you've been so kind.
Aiden compares what he calls the rights and wrongs of today's society with yesterday's society. And he implies that morality is changing over time. But can morality actually change? Well, biblically, morality is a reflection of God's moral character. And because God's character can't change, morality can't change either. But what can change and does change over time is a person's or entire society's behavior by God's standard of morality. In other words, God has permanently posted his speed limit and it doesn't change. But people just choose to drive faster and faster and sin more and more by the standard of that speed limit. And though Aiden says he has, quote, no religious beliefs, as a fellow image bearer of our Creator God, who's hardwired us all wanting hope, Luke asks him another great question to transition to big question 3. Do you hope for an afterlife? Of course Aiden does, which leads to a great conversation about Christ and his gospel. Well done, Anchor Luke. And if you're a fellow Christian, please pray for God to save Aiden before it's too late. Well, thanks again for watching Go Teams Media. If you'd personally like to continue conversing and connecting with us, go to goteamsmedia.com. I'm Corey McKenna, the Equipping Evangelist, and you've been on the go with Go Teams Media.